we all have our egos, right? And we have to put them at the door. I say, put your egos at the door and put your problems at the door. Let's come in to work together. We're here for the end product. It's sort of like what you do with your businesses, right?
It really is.
We're all here as parts, as pieces of the puzzle to make one big puzzle. And the only way we're going to get to that puzzle, putting the jigsaw to put it together, is if we all work together and put it together.
Hey everyone, my name is Ethan DeLeon, and I'm here with our founder and CEO of Small Nation, Jason Duff. Today we're excited to have the resident artist instructor of music at Ohio Northern University, Kirsten Osbun-Manley, on the show with us. We want to welcome you to the Small Nation podcast, where we share some of the valuable lessons with what we have learned about entrepreneurship, real estate, and economic development, and more. The point of this podcast is to create value for you, the listener, and to create a space to learn, talk about what's trending, and inspire others.
Thank you, Ethan. Kirsten, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I have been so excited to see you and to have you here. You are one of my favorite people on the planet.
Oh, well, you're one of my favorite former students.
Oh,
so there
thank
you go.
That means so much. And, we were talking about what topic we could discuss today. And you and I have worked together on a number of projects over the years. And something that's very important to me, and I imagine a lot of listeners, is their background in the arts and music in a community. And I think that's something that you and I share a special connection and appreciation for. Tell me, when did you first get exposed to arts and music in your life?
When did I? Okay, well, I have to go back to probably church life back in Kenton, Ohio, is where I grew up, at the First United Methodist Church, and I had a fabulous choir director named Scott Barrett, who is now an attorney, has been judge in Kenton as well. And he inspired me to sing in the choir, and I've discovered my voice.
Was your family musical?
No.
No? Okay. Yeah.
Actually, it's bizarre. My brother is an actor, and my father was a businessman, and my mother was a speech pathologist. So neither one of them were in the arts, and both of us pursued, a career in the arts. So, yeah.
Well, I think we mentioned on previous episodes, I love the church is often a good way to lead into some of those things in the arts and music. And I know even with myself with videography or music myself, it's a great way to get plugged in. So to try your talents, refine them, and get honest feedback, I guess.
It was, and it was a way I did solos. I was in the choir, and then from there, I always studied piano. I started studying piano lessons when I was 5 years old. So from a Mrs. Mockentons across the street. So yeah. So I continued with that as well. So that's where I started my love, and theater. My grandmother was an avid. She loved the theater, and she would go to New York every year. And, and she took me when I was probably in middle school, junior high, we called it then. And I went to New York and saw some Broadway shows. I saw Pippin.
Was that one of your first shows?
Oh, yeah. Ben Vereen, Chicago, Cheetah Rivera. So when I saw those Broadway shows in New York City, that sort of did it for me. I knew at that point I really wanted to pursue the arts and pursue music. So that was my passion at that time. And the thing that I did really well, right? I mean, we always gravitate to what we feel most comfortable and we feel successful in. Yeah. And that's what I was successful in.
In Kenton, Ohio, what was it like growing up in Kenton?
Kenton was a fabulous small town. Very similar to Bellefontaine in some respects. And, family businesses were very important. You knew the local grocer, you knew the local shoe
maker
or whatever. And you also, clothing store, you knew all the people in your town. And so for me, I could walk down on my main street, which was Detroit Street, and go to Isley's Ice Cream Store, or go, to the local 5 and 10, and pick up something there. So it was a very peaceful existence, and a very just welcoming, and the sense of community was very important.
In your family business, tell us about that.
My dad, it's my great grandfather established Kenton Structural and Ornamental Iron in Kenton. And then that's my great-grandfather. And then my grandfather and his brother, who was my uncle, expanded the business into Bartol Flagpoles, so there were two businesses under the same family, Bartol Flagpoles and then Kenton Structural Ornamental Iron. And then my dad bought, once my grandfather retired, became the CEO of Kenton Structural Ornamental Iron, and my cousin husband became the CEO of Bartol. So it was a family business. Both of them were.
What you hear of those family businesses in a place like Kenton, manufacturing steel and iron was an industry that was impacting towns and communities all across the country. I mean, you were shipping your products everywhere.
Everywhere. I mean, Bartol flagpoles, I can tell you, are, at the UN, they're everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I still, whenever I go to a city, I look at the flagpoles to see if it says Bartol.
I love that.
I mean, it's no longer in existence, but, but the flagpoles still live on.
Yeah.
So
you had this great experience in a community that was very nurturing for you growing up and being a part of a faith community. Did a lot of folks in your family go to college?
My parents did.
They did?
They did. They both are graduates of Ohio State University. My father majored in geology.
I love that.
Yeah, right. Well, rocks,
Yeah.
but he ended up with steel, so okay. And then my mother was a speech pathologist, so she went on and worked with, in the school system. So she was an integral part of the education of young people in the community.
So you went on the search to find a university.
I did. Well, because music was what I could do. I could sing. That's what I felt really successful doing. So I was told by my choir director at the time, who was certainly a mentor, J.D. Smith, who is a legend in Kenton and also in Findlay, as well as the choral director there for many years, encouraged me to pursue a degree in music. And I went into music education for maybe 2 quarters, and then I was like, this is not for me. I'm never going to be a teacher. Now, remember that. And so I went into vocal performance. I just changed my major to vocal performance, primarily opera. But I always had this passion for musical theater, and graduated from BGSU with a vocal performance degree, and then went on and did my graduate studies at Indiana University. But at that time, I went on after that and just auditioned for, did a lot of auditioning, and I auditioned for an equity production while I was in grad school of The Sound of Music.
Wow.
And that's where I felt at home in the musical theater realm. I mean, I did opera. I've always done crossover, but the passion was for musical theater.
Why?
I don't know. I'll tell you, I was more successful with singing musical theater than I probably was opera. My voice is very small in comparison to opera singers. So, I would always get the comprimario roles in opera, which is the smaller roles, and I loved it, but I didn't feel connected to it. And there was something about musical theater that just really, my voice fit it, and and I loved it. I was just passionate about it. So went on tour there, got my equity card, which is the equivalent of a union card for a professional actor and singer, and did regional theater. And long story short, I ended up, as everyone, we get married and move on, and I came back in the area and ended up at Ohio Northern University. So that was a wonderful thing for me as well. So we'll talk about that, I'm sure, later. But
Well, I love hearing, and I think that's what's been powerful about this podcast is everyone has a story and a DNA, and a few things that buttoned up is there were some things that surprised you along the journey. You ended up going to Bowling Green, and while opera was a focus, as you got out into the marketplace, you maybe got some rejections.
I sure did.
How did that feel?
It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard, but I knew going into it, that's to be expected. You don't, for everything you audition for, let's say you audition for 20 things, you may be lucky out of 20 to get one job. And it may not be the role, the ideal role that you audition for. It may be something smaller or even a chorus role. So, the knocks are not easy, but you know what? That builds character. That makes you stronger, and it makes you really look at yourself and say, okay, well, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What do I need to improve? Or is this role right for me? Or is this a good fit? And so the discovery of and journey as an actor, as a singer, as a human being, we all grow and we learn from those knocks, I think, more than we learn from those successes.
So here's where my story comes into play is that, growing up, I did not have parents that went to college. Both my parents, when they turned 18 years old, they were expected to go to work. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different experience that our family had. And I had a music teacher in middle school and high school that became a mentor and really encouraged me to pursue the arts. It was a little uncomfortable because a lot of people from my school, like, it was kind of expected that you will play these sports, you will do these things, but I was different, and I had someone that kind of helped me realize that my difference was a good thing.
It is.
And I, for the first time, I was not very good in academics. Like, I got by, but like, that was not where I was excelling. I was not excelling in sports. I tried really hard, but it just, the coordination. I played baseball.
Okay.
You did. I didn't know that.
I did, but I was not very good. Let's just say that. It didn't last very long. But like, I would try different things, but I wasn't getting the traction. But then when I got introduced to music, it was something that being able to read from a script and working with others and taking different parts and harmonies and connecting them together, I felt, not only did I feel like I was part of something bigger, I was being nurtured in a way that I'd never been exposed.
And you found your home, right?
You do. And I think that's part of the journey. And I think the other thing you mentioned was getting confidence. As I would be more confident in as a singer, people would actually say things like, "You're actually really good."
And you are, Jason.
Well, that was nice. That's nice of you, Kirsten. But like, it was then saying, well, you're probably good enough and you have enough natural talent. And I think that's another thing. There's a lot of people that have natural talent, whether it's their sound or their intonation or their presence. There's so many different categories, but unless you find someone that is going to help you harness that natural talent and perfect it, you can get stuck. And I think that was the thing that my teacher in high school, who happened to also be an alum of Ohio Northern, that was Joyce King.
Joyce King. I was going to say Mrs. King.
Yeah, and so she said, you should go audition for a scholarship. And that was kind of a sales pitch for my parents to say, this is a worthwhile endeavor. We'll allow you to go and pursue this. But it was an uncomfortable conversation to say I wanted to be a music major. And I'm not sure, when you said music education to your parents, some of the things that the judgments that can come, that just naturally happen, how are you going to make money to survive?
My dad never said that. He always, he supported me in everything that I did. I think he thought the practical way was the education route, because I have a job when I get out. And so when I decided to go performance, he didn't say anything, but I know that was in the back of his mind. But yeah, it is hard.
It's a stigma out there. And I want people to listen. And I think that's what's valuable about our stories, is that just because you graduate or you're pursuing a path in music or the arts doesn't mean that that's exactly where you end up.
It isn't.
It's just part of the journey. And so this is how I auditioned. I was awarded a talent scholarship. Kirsten was one of the adjudication folks that I was in front of. I think part of the thing that also, she has this natural side. It's the way she made me feel. There was a welcoming, but also a discerning, I'm happy that you're here. I'm excited to hear you perform, but this is not just a give me. Like, you're going to have to work to earn this. And so being presented that scholarship was the opportunity to then be exposed to other musicians. And I think this is the other big shift that happens. When you're in your local community, you may be the best. But then when you get to a larger pool, there are a lot of other best people from their communities that are there.
That's right. And you learn from that, right? And you learn, it's hard, because sometimes you think, wow, I may not be as good, but you really, you get there. You get there. You have to accept that.
I think you find your style of, you may not be as good in some areas, but this goes back to what you're saying earlier. You maybe didn't have the big voice, but you had a style or a grit or a type that was yours.
That's right. And it's taken a long time. I can still remember my one of my voice teachers, especially at IU, Rary Grist, who was a very famous operatic soprano. And I remember we'd work on the operatic stuff, the classical things, and then I did some Broadway pieces, and she said, that's where your voice lives. And I remember thinking, no, but I don't want that. I want the other. But, she wasn't the first person that told me that. But yeah, having somebody tell you that and then nurturing that and building your confidence to say, that's the direction you should go. Really being honest with somebody and transparent is so important.
It's hard today because I imagine you've worked with students over the last 20 years?
34 years.
34 years.
I've been at Ohio Northern for 34 years.
Wow,
yeah.
congrats.
Yeah, thank you. I love it there.
Yeah.
Has there been a shift in how you are mentoring and coaching students today?
I'm a little bit more careful. I would just say more sensitive. My style of teaching before, and Jason knows this, I'm loving and I'm caring, but I'm honest. I'm brutally honest. And now I find I have to be a little bit more sensitive and word it perhaps in a different way. And that's okay. But I don't lie to them. I will never lie to them. I tell them the truth. And they may not always like the truth, but in the end, they do appreciate hearing my candidness or my honesty.
Have either of you seen the movie Whiplash?
No.
I've heard of it.
No, I haven't even heard of it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, I don't know. I just watched it this past weekend, which is why I asked. But it's about a jazz musician, drummer, who gets in this band in college, and there's this prestigious group, a jazz group, that he gets involved with. But the conductor is brutally honest and to the point where it becomes abusive. Things like that.
Well,
yeah, no.
I'm going to be honest, though. I've had, whether you think back to teachers, and I can also, we're not going to name names on this podcast, but we have had people, and truthfully, as I look back, some of the most difficult auditions, and there's a period when you're an artist and in a show, the director, right after the rehearsal or the performance, will sometimes give notes.
Yeah.
And, notes come in the form of feedback. And there have been experiences that I have been with fellow cast members that some of those notes are more than brutally honest. They are painful.
They're very painful.
And it can be physical attributes. It can be stylized attributes. But I look back at those moments, and I'll just be honest for those that know, I was never really great at dancing. And
Jason, no, you learned how to tap.
I could hide it, but I was not very good. And the thing about it in the musical theater spectrum, you have to kind of fake it till you make it in some cases.
You're right, you do.
But those notes, like that some of that stuff would zing. If you're on the stage and you feel very confident about your vocals, and then you've got someone that's the choreographer that's just ripping you apart. You have to kind of take it with kindness. But
you
it's
actually do.
But I think it's those. Have you had people in the past that kind of hurt?
Oh, sure. I can remember being at IU and having those professors criticize you, being very brutal, and not always with the best, I would say, best choice of words at times. And I don't think in this day and age they get away with that. But in my time period, that was just the way it was, But you're right, it hurts. But you know what? I looked at it and I was like, okay, here's what if I want to get better at this, I need to work on this. Whether it's dance or whatever, whether it's the way I'm delivering the monologue. But criticism is a part of every day in anything you do, right? I mean, we have to evaluate ourselves and look at ourselves and say, how can I get better? What is it that's not working? And how can I find a solution to make it work better? So I think those knocks build us up to be able to withstand criticism that's coming down your way later on in life. So it doesn't bother me as much anymore when I am criticized, because I still am. You are too, every day, right? Every day.
You're on stage
every day. It's showtime when you go to work.
And taking the parallels from what you have learned and what you do professionally, what do you believe as you're preparing young people? What are some of the skills that they're learning in rehearsals and on the stage?
Well, first of all, when I try to instill upon them is first of all to be respectful to one another. That is paramount. Kindness and patience, being respectful to each other, building one another up, and collaborating. To me, that is the most important thing when I'm in the rehearsal room. I'm not talking about just one-on-one where I teach voice lessons, so it's one-on-one. But when we're in a rehearsal for the holiday show, whether it's for Pirates of Penzance or whatever show I'm directing, that is what I demand of the students. I don't care, and not to make fun of one another, to build one another up, and be able to take that criticism. I'm going to say, look, guys, I'm going to be honest with you in here. I'm going to tell you, drop your jaw. You sound like you're hooting like an owl. That's not intended to hurt you, but it's to make it better. So let's try to work together. So what I try to do is instill within the students to be kind and respectful to one another, and to work together collaboratively to have the best end product. So that's my.
So those, in terms of the stage, you also are working together with a number of other collaborators that are also artists.
Mm-hmm.
How do you take people of very different backgrounds that are coming at from their perspective to then get them around the table for the overall production?
It's tough. There are times, we all have our egos, right? And we have to put them at the door. I say, put your egos at the door and put your problems at the door. Let's come in to work together. We're here for the end product. It's sort of like what you do with your businesses, right?
It really is.
We're all here as parts, as pieces of the puzzle to make one big puzzle. And the only way we're going to get to that puzzle, putting the jigsaw to put it together, is if we all work together and put it together in a way that's collaboratively. And so that's when I'm working with artists. And look, we all have egos. I have an ego. You have an ego.
Sure. It takes a level of confidence.
Yes, it does.
To get to a point. And I think that's where the ego is really needed.
It's
like,
needed.
I have an opinion or I have a problem that I want to solve in the world.
Mm-hmm.
This is my area of focus. My gift, let me use my gift. But then I think it's taking a step back and realizing that there are a lot of other gifts around the table, and we all need each other.
And we need each other, and we have to listen to one another. That's the other thing. A lot of us don't listen. We want to preach and say how this is the way I want it, instead of listening to the other person. And I've learned that hard lesson as a director, as a teacher, as a member of a faculty. You have to sit back and listen to somebody and what they're saying first, and be able to not speak over them, and to just hear what they're trying to say. And then hopefully they will listen to what you have to offer as well, and then come to a collective agreement. It's not always easy. But students need to learn that too. They have to listen to one another.
Wise words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And obviously, I think, we're teeing up some of those questions because obviously there's direct parallels to entrepreneurship and business ownership, and just trying anything new as a human being in general. But part of what I'm excited to talk about on this podcast episode is to talk about how we can use the arts and music and things like that in our communities, to kind of reach out to our economic development folks. So I'm sure you've seen it in some point, but why do you think, in your opinion, that the arts are often overlooked, in comparison to sports? My mom was a music teacher, so I've seen
you did tell me
in
that.
a high school, and so I saw up front, a lot of times parents and faculty put, sports because they may be the moneymakers and things like that. But I'd love to hear from your perspective.
Well, I think sports and music and the art, sports, music, theater, and arts are all similar in the way we approach things, okay? They call them, what do they call them? Practices, and we call them
rehearsals.
and we're rehearsals. I always say we share a rehearsals. We share a building with the football team at Ohio Northern, and we're tapping and singing down one hall,
Wow.
and then you hear the meetings going on the other.
Yeah.
We pass, and I say, "Hi, coach. How's practice or how's rehearsal going?" He goes, I say, "Not practice." Or not rehearsal, practice.
Yeah, I love that.
No, I think the importance of the arts should not be underestimated. Because if you take away imagination and creativity, life would be rather boring and colorless, right?
Yeah.
So all forms of art are important, and ways that we express ourselves. And I think in our ideas and forming a part of our identities. So I think art is so important to the community, right? Arts and culture illuminate our inner lives, right? And enrich our emotional world. So they're important. They're an integral part.
Yeah.
You can't, look at sports. You have a football game, but what's playing in the background? Music, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the halftime show? Music.
Yeah.
Some color guard,
Performance.
something, performance. Lady Gaga performs at the what is it? The what's the big
Super Bowl?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, I don't know football very well, so I was a little hesitant to
We
answer.
all did well. Yes, got that.
I mean, the arts give us a place to gather as a community, as a society, right? From fine arts showing on murals in the community, on buildings, to community theater, to concerts at the park, or at the football games, right?
Yep.
I mean, they provide an opportunity for us to gather with other people together from all walks of life. So I think it's an integral part of what we do every day, right?
And I love what you said about it really is what makes that town unique.
It
I mean,
is.
who would want to be boring? And I think that as I travel to other towns and communities, one of the first things is the physical elements when I go in to see if there is an investment of public art.
Yeah.
And the next thing is if there's a great restaurant or a coffee shop, I want to know, is there going to be live music? Because that is probably a place that I want to go check out. And if you think to some of your most favorite places that you travel and visit, there's probably a good chance that having a music venue or a theater is a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just so important. I mean, you look at Bow Fountain right now, right? What do you have that is just, I was impressed. I think the last time I was here to see you, we went over to the Holland Theater.
Yep.
And
well, you remember we went there when there was nothing there.
That's right. And now, oh my.
It's an asset and a treasure. And you also see here in town, we've got the Syndicate that does live music on the weekends, May through fall. And that also provides an ecosystem for budding artists to get in front of audiences and also be able to get paid. I think that's the other thing that we want to support those artists to have a place if they do a media out of their home to actually display their art in a local coffee shop. Like it supports the system.
It can only benefit the economy too, right? If you don't have something like the Syndicate right now, why do people come to the Syndicate on certain nights? Because there's going to be live music, right? Whoop. And those people that are performing are getting paid. So it just adds to everything we do in life, I think. I mean, even in Ada, Ohio, I mean, the parade, we have a big parade, the Harvest and Herb Parade, what's part of that? The bands, the artists that come there, people gather, and it's important. If we didn't have that, can you imagine?
Right.
I can't imagine life without music or any sort of. I mean, look at the downtown here. Look at the Queen of Hearts right now. How beautiful that looks. It's artistic. Everything you see in this community, there's an element of artistic, whether it's visual, whether it's oral, whatever it is. It's vibrant, and that's why you're successful right now. Yeah. So
appreciate that. As you think back to your career, you and you're very humble. I know more about your background. You had the opportunity to perform on any stage you wanted to.
Well,
no, you did. And you came back to Ada, Ohio.
I did.
Why?
Well, it chose me. Ada chose me. Ohio Northern University chose me. I came back at a time, my daughter was very young, came back. It's a long story. I won't even go into it. But I ended up in Ada. And I remember thinking, I'm in Ada, Ohio. I'm back in Hardin County. I just came from New Jersey. I was over on the East Coast. And here I am. Okay. But you know who reached out to me? The music department and the theater department. And said, hey, we hear you're in town, blah, blah, blah. Would you like to get involved? And that's how it happened. And then the music department chair at the time said, I'd love for you to teach. And I said, you want me to teach? Okay. Remember the first part of the story.
The education major. Yeah.
And I was teaching some private voice at the time to just some high school kids would come and take voice lessons. And because my daughter was very young, she was a baby. And I said, okay, I'll teach one day a week. Well, that blossomed into what I'm doing now. And so I always say it chose me. Teaching chose me, right? It brought me joy. It still brings me joy to this day. It's what I do. It's who I am. It defines me. And it's the most rewarding, I would say, thing in my life, next to my daughter and my husband. So,
as you talk to Kirsten students, a lot of folks have said, and I believe this is true because I'm one of them, is that she was the mom away from mom.
Yeah.
That when you got on campus to have someone, when you're in voice studio, you're intimately working on a piece of music, you're refining it, but life's moments come up where dealing with the first breakup that I ever had, I'm struggling with depression, I'm dealing with a health issue, I'm not sure of my sexuality. I mean, we could go on of real life things that they feel comfortable telling you before anyone else. That's a really important responsibility.
Well, I love my students and I care about them. And part of my job is not just teaching them how to sing, but it's helping them grow up and not to be afraid of who they are. And I think that's, if anything, that's probably more the job, 80% of my job, right? And, it's both ways too. I learn a lot from my students. What is the quote from Anna from The King and I? There's a very ancient saying, but a true and honest thought, that if you become a teacher, by your pupils you'll be taught.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I feel that they give me so much too, and still do to this day. So I love them, but I also I'm very proud of them and their accomplishments, whether they go on as performers or what you're doing, Jason. I'm so proud of you. I still remember the first day I met Jason. Can I just tell you
Yes,
this
please.
story?
I want to hear
You got to
this.
hear the story because I think this is interesting. So before he came and auditioned at Ohio Northern University, he was probably, I don't know, you were in middle school? Yeah. You might have been.
I was in middle school. Yeah.
He came into, I remember seeing you with your little briefcase. You came in like this little tie suit, and and he was very serious about it was music camp. It was
Summer music camp.
Yes, it was. And you were in my class. What was that class? It was voice, something about vocal health or something.
Yes.
You were taking
And I was taking it
notes.
very
He was
seriously.
taking
I have no
notes.
doubt.
As a competitive person, I want to keep that voice in shape.
Yeah.
You did, but I still remember that. And I have snippets of each of my students that I've had of memories, and I can still see Jason in my office when he was in college, and taking a voice lesson, or also on stage because he's a great performer too. I wish you would do more of that, Jason. Still,
We're working
you don't
on
have
that.
time. You don't have time.
If you have
working
any
on it.
footage or anything, I'm happy to link it on the Small Nation YouTube channel.
I can find some.
Yeah, trust me, there's some fun stuff.
No, but I think that my students are probably the reason I continue. I could retire, but I have no intention of doing that right now because I love what I do, and I love the opportunities that I can help them to open gates for them and show them where their best strengths are. And many of my students have gone on to be performers, but a lot of them are attorneys, businessmen, clergy, you name it. They're engineers, so they're successful, but they're all still contributing to the arts in some way, shape, or form, and I think that's important. Whether or not they stay as a performer, that doesn't matter to me.
Right.
I always tell them, whatever you do, always remember where you came from, and remember that there's always a need for arts, to somebody to support the arts, and I think that's really important in your communities. Whether it's getting involved at the Holland Theater or getting involved like you do here in Bellefontaine in many ways to support the arts, and I really appreciate that, Jason, about you.
Feelings
I'm very
are mutual.
proud of you. I'm
Thank
very
you.
proud of you.
Well, we've had other guests on that have said the analogy in their business, and restaurants have been a big focus to revitalize towns and communities. And that running a shift at a restaurant is just like running an orchestra session, because you have this planned sheet of music. You have a lot of different instruments that are united around running the shift for the day. There are some days that orchestra piece sounds beautiful, and there are other days that's an
Falls
absolute
apart.
disaster.
Yeah, right. Just like food, right? Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, and it's interesting, as you think back, to some of the shows that you have directed, the ones that have worked really well, and maybe some of the ones that you're like, I'd like to forget that show.
that I maybe one show I forget, but I have a great example of things falling apart. I've directed The Pirates of Penzance, twice. Yes, twice. And now the first time was back in 1993, I believe, 91, 92, 93, somewhere around then. And then the second time was a few years ago, 2017. 2017 or 2018. And at that last performance, opening night was fabulous. Fabulous. I had the lighting designer a guest lighting designer was the assistant lighting designer for Hamilton on Broadway. So it looked absolutely beautiful. I had beautiful costumes, fabulous orchestra, fabulous students in the role. So opening night was fabulous. That was a Thursday night. The next day, my lead came down with laryngitis. No voice.
And at that time, did you have swings? Did you have people that were understudy or no?
Not for this particular show.
Yeah.
And now we do. And so I didn't know what to do. And actually, I had a girl that locally that could have gone on, but she was doing actually she's from Bell Fountain, Miriam Stoner.
Yeah.
She could have done it, but she was in New York with another gig. Called her, she couldn't do it. So I thought, what am I going to do? Long story short, we made do. We brought in somebody who had to basically never done the role, but was a professional singer. Left to her a tour of Something Rotten, which was a regional tour of a Broadway production.
Wow.
And she was in the chorus, but she called off and came and flew in and did it for us. One rehearsal in the morning.
Wow.
Now she was in the pit. And we mic'd her. And the girl that was sick, had no voice, was
Oh my
lip-syncing,
gosh,
and no
wow.
one knew.
That's pretty darn impressive.
No.
Just because she knew all the blocking and
But no, the girl in the pit, who was
yeah.
Well, I had the actual person's. Yeah, she had to.
She
do
just
the
couldn't
blocking.
sing.
She
Wow.
couldn't sing. Yeah, so
You made it work.
yeah, made it work, and that's my point. Is yes, there's been other things, and with holiday show we always have some major catastrophe. So I always have swings that go in now, and yeah, we have to.
As you think back, points of pride, and it could be where you have just, a show that you participated in or a production. What are some of your points of pride that you're just most proud of with your career?
Oh, with my career personally? Yeah. Oh, just being an effective teacher. I mean, seeing my students succeed in life. Whether that's, I have, Marion, one of my Marion Donahoe, Mary Beth, is on national tour of Mean Girls right now. So that's
cool.
Going to see her is a source of pride. One of my other students is a successful attorney. Seeing her succeed in helping women's issues, support women's issues, it's a sense of pride. Seeing you, Jason, as someone who's really done so much for the community and communities around here is a sense of pride. So that's my joy is seeing all of you be successful. So
feelings are mutual, and I imagine now some of your students are having kids.
Oh yes,
that's
it's
even
crazy.
cooler. Like I've been watching, of course, like. Your grandchildren,
yeah,
and then our Sarah Chungson watching her kids excel. That's got to be super cool.
It's fun, especially I see these kids come in. I'm thinking, I know you're
the mini me, right?
They're
the mini me
of them.
Yeah,
it's wonderful to see that happen, and of course, to see my former students' children participate in the arts is so makes me so happy.
For someone listening that maybe wasn't involved in the arts growing up, but they want to find a way to contribute and support their community with that, what are ways that they can plug in?
Well, I think, here's just a simple little example. If you are in the community of Ada, you certainly can come to see the shows and be an angel for the arts at Ohio Northern University. Lima Symphony Orchestra is an orchestra that's not very far away, a fabulous orchestra with a fabulous conductor, Andrew Crust. Their programming, they have a season that's for all ages, they ranging from children's concerts to classical concerts to Broadway and pops concerts as well. Support these this is a fabulous orchestra. Not many towns have this.
And they have a youth orchestra too.
Yes, they do.
Both my sisters participated in that growing up.
There you go. Yeah,
and that shaped. I'm positive.
It shapes them, doesn't it? And from there, Ada Community, we sponsor the Ohio Northern University supports the Patriotic Pops concert with the Lima Symphony Orchestra that comes in the summer. So people gather and come and see this, but they also from that, they purchase season tickets or they just attend the events. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, to me, just being a part of it and supporting your fellow community or your community in these events that are happening right there. And I'm sure like the Holland Theater, my mom has come over several times to the events here at Holland Theater and they love it. So just supporting your local community theaters, right?
Yeah, just attending the shows.
Just attending, right?
Yeah, paying, into whatever programs they have going on.
I also think the youth theater scene, there is not a better way to, support young people having an opportunity to learn and collaborate. And I love that so many of these musicals have junior versions.
Oh, it's perfect.
It's just, I wish like that's a newer thing that's kind of come on the scene the last 20 years. But, it's finding ways to get people plugged into
the arts.
And we're also in a very digital world now. Like how...
Right. Oh.
I know.
Don't even
I can
talk
imagine
to me
all
about
the
that.
iPads. And then the thing about it is the auto-tune. And then I think it's fascinating. Like we didn't have YouTube to the level. I mean, you can listen to 30 different arrangements of one particular song and pick up stylized versions of different performers. How are you incorporating all of that? Like
I don't.
I wonder. Yeah.
I do. Our students, though, I will say this: in order to do auditions now, and since the COVID, since the pandemic, they had, because think about this: the auditions were no longer. You couldn't go to these massive auditions. I mean, we didn't even go. We did everything via, live stream / video, observing videos. So our students are extremely savvy in how to upload their audition material to various casting directors or talent agents. So we're doing a lot of that at the university. I'm not high tech, but I prepare them with the cuts that they have to do, what they're wearing. Okay, somebody else handles all the other, but that's what they're doing. In fact, they don't have to travel to New York right now. You just send a digital, you upload your video.
Yeah, and to think creatively on how to use those tools. I know in my industry, in video and things like that, like people are just coming up with these crazy ideas now. Just like if you need to network with somebody, you can create find a Facebook group, probably just about anywhere you were in the country.
Instagram is the way they all do it.
Yeah,
they're into that. That is the big thing.
To use those tools to find your community, and like if you don't feel like that's immediately available in your community, and if you don't have something where you're at, they need like all communities need champions to start that. And I know that's some of the efforts we're making here in Bell Fountain is to try to cultivate those arts with projects like Rainbow Row and stuff like that.
What is Rainbow Row?
When you finish here, we're going to go on a little walk.
You're going to show me.
We want a part of our town to be the funky, fun, eclectic arts district.
Oh, cool.
Because I'm glad you said and that's my reaction, and I think that's most people's reaction. I will tell you, though, it also, for people that maybe aren't used to bright and colorful buildings or used to seeing a craft beer and wine shop next to the art gallery across from the gay bar, like all of these things, they're new things for a small town, but they're also part of this fun, eclectic community that's growing and building here.
It has to be.
Right.
It has to be.
And how do you help? What do you do when you meet the resistance that those being different or being, it makes people uncomfortable?
You mean for the only way
I'm just saying, for a community to embrace something that they've not yet been exposed to, how do we expose them to that in a positive way?
I just think you have to. I think you have to try it. I mean, I don't think there's any other way. You just have to try it. You have to go for it.
Yeah, we talked about you have to have a certain amount of ego to have the confidence to do it, right? But then you have to. I don't know. My perspective is you have to know when to keep that in check and approach with humility, not act like all the answers.
Absolutely.
But you do have to be bold and just start with something.
You have to start.
Somewhere.
If you don't start, it'll never happen. Right? And it'll catch on. And I think I love this. I
cannot wait to see it. We're going to go over there after the show.
Exciting.
So yeah.
That is exciting.
Well, that is figuring out the next iteration of the art. And I would say that a lot of the work in placemaking and community building is creating a place that it's desirable for people to visit, to live, and to work.
Right.
And what does that mean is we don't want to be doing the same things that every other town and community is
you
doing.
don't.
And so I can name here in Ohio, there's a few communities like the Yellow Springs and others.
Yeah.
I love to visit just to see what's eclectic, weird, funky, and fun.
And they're eclectic, weird, funky, and fun. Yes.
And if we
I
can
know.
take a little
bit
piece of that,
Yeah.
and put that here,
Yes.
then that even adds to making our community more vibrant. But I will tell you and I think that you run into this, is that pushing those limits and those borders can make people uncomfortable, but that's okay.
That is okay. I mean, we want diversity, right? We want diversity in communities. Otherwise, you're only going to be this.
It is strength through diversity. And that's what our whole university,
absolutely.
our alma mater is based on.
It is. You have to have that in order to be successful. And that's just me.
Well, and I think it's more people, but it is forming conversations in our community for people that have not been exposed. It's the same thing in the theater world. There are certain shows that push the limits.
Well, I would say in the last 5 years, we have really, we are exploring more of that. We're going to do a musical this next fall. I won't name it, but that will explore, push the boundaries a little bit. All right. We did do Spring Awakening a few years ago, which that raised a lot of eyebrows, but it is a very hot topic. And so I think, we can't always do the Oklahomas, right? Although I want to see an Oklahoma once in a while.
Sure.
But I also want to see a Shakespeare every once in a while, but not every season. So we have to find, just like what you're trying to do, we have to have a season that is diverse, that does push the boundaries and makes people think, because isn't that what it's about, right? We become complacent and boring and dull, right?
What fills you up?
What?
And I'll say, like, this is as an artist, you pour yourself out in a lot of different ways, but you have to find ways to recharge. Do you have any secrets or advice that you have found to recharge your batteries?
Well, I still like to sing. Okay. I still, I'm getting older, but I still love to perform and still love to sing. And what recharges my batteries, and what might sound very boring and dull to all of you, but I love to research and work on recital work. So, which is singing German, singing French, singing cabaret songs, singing whatever. So for me, it's personally studying that music and being able to find the time to practice every day and sing every day. I sing every day, but I'm teaching at the piano, but really, really researching and doing things that feed my soul. That as far as my art is concerned.
And your significant other, you have a musical family.
Yeah, my husband is a choral director at Findlay High School, and so he's very busy as well, forming, teaching and mentoring students as well. And he's a wonderful example of a terrific educator. So.
To give him a shout out, Findlay High School, I think in terms of the show choir universe,
yes,
probably has more grand champions than most in the Midwest.
They do.
They do. Kind of a big deal. You know what's funny? The show Glee, for those of you that are listening, like the whole premise is based on Lima, Ohio, which we give Lima a lot of credit.
That's no show choir there. It's Findlay.
I think it's Findlay.
No,
and honestly,
it is Findlay.
It's that's what's neat about this whole ecosystem of what we've all been so blessed to work in and get to experience. It's on the national stage with the version of Glee.
Yes, exactly.
But we've lived that, right?
Right.
So, big shout out to Kevin.
Yeah.
And I know many of his students that are also out and about that I'll run into, and we'll share the background. Like, well, you went to Findlay High School and you were involved in music. You were in FFE, like you were in that show choir.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it is pretty darn cool. So.
Yeah, he's pretty busy. I mean, he leaves in the morning about 6:30 in the morning. Sometimes doesn't get home till after 10 every night. So, again, it's what he does, and he's passionate about it, and he loves the kids, and that's what drives us all. I think all teachers. Why do they stay in a long time? Because they love the students.
Yeah,
we're all in different seasons of life.
We are.
Let me just ask in terms of roles that you maybe have on your list that you would like to do now with the seasoning that you have. Is there something that comes to mind that you're like, I never knew I'd arrive here, but I've arrived and I really would love to do this role or this show or this experience?
Oh, the show or experience. No, I'm content. I really am, Jason. I know that sounds crazy, and but I'm content and where I am. I will say this: I've explored other things in my last 5 years, and I sort of felt like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, where she thinks there's a better place, and is in the land of Oz, but really, there's no place like home, and home for me was teaching. So, I've experienced a lot of things, and I'm very grateful for those opportunities because it taught me a lot about how the inner workings of an institution work. It evolves and what goes into it. So for me, it was, I've done that, and I'm glad I did. But what I discovered was what I really, really, truly love the most is my students. So.
And that's an important analogy that we've also seen, that people think that the bright lights of the city are where their joy and happiness is. And you need that taste, though. If you didn't do those things, you wouldn't know what to appreciate. But I love that analogy that there really is no place at home, and you really are at home with your purpose and your passion of what you're doing.
That is exactly it. So, I'm very grateful for being able to work at Ohio Northern, because it's developed me as a human being too, and really taught me a lot as well. And a lot of people, and along the way, my mentors helped navigate my way as well. So I'm very grateful for that. So.
Love that.
Yeah, that's great. I was just about to tee up the question for you. Is we like at the end of these episodes, we like to give the one more opportunity to provide value to our listeners with one practical resource for you. But I think you just kind of mentioned your mentors along the way. But do you have anything?
Well,
in addition?
Sure. The people that have gone before me have really taught me a lot, and as you get older, you reflect on that, and you reflect on those individuals. For example, Dr. DeBeau-Fried, who was a tremendous president and tremendous human being, taught me a lot about patience and kindness and respect. All right. Ed Williams, who's passed as well, was my department chair. Again, just a great human being and caring human being who taught me to really care about the students and listen to what the students were saying. So, and again, I just think, the people we come in contact with are there for a reason. And I've met you for a reason, Jason. Met you for a reason as well. And we all are learning from one another and shaping our thoughts and really, I don't know, at the end of the day, I'm grateful for all these opportunities, for being around these folks and for helping me along the way. So.
Yeah, it's great.
I think this episode sets the stage for a lot of people that are listening at different points in their life. Like, how are you connecting with the next generation? How are you exploring your artistic, creative side? And in all fairness, the busyness of life sometimes just has you doing the things to do the things and not thinking about your thinking. And I appreciate the pushing a little bit to say, I have not been pursuing a lot of the music and the arts that truthfully has given me a lot of what I'm doing professionally today. But I grieve a little bit. I want to find that opportunity to plug in. And it's just, you need to take time, whether it's getting involved in your local community choir or helping direct a production, or
doing costumes.
It could be simple
things like that, right?
But it brings you joy, and I do say, like, I love seeing young people succeed.
Me too.
And I think because you think back to your younger version of yourself, and you see that little bit of glimpse of like all the things that I wish I knew, but you can't take their lessons away.
Oh, you cannot.
It's like I'm here when you need me, but I'm excited for you to have your journey and your experience.
Exactly.
Well, thank you today. This has been awesome.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ethan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it.
And last thing here is, where can people follow you, or what's happening?
Where they can follow me at ONU. Well, I actually even wrote that down because I'm not the most Instagram, Facebook person. So, first of all, you can, if you want to find out any more about ONU and all the different things that we're doing at the Freed Center, you can go www.freedcenter.com, and our Freed Center at Freed Center, which is the Instagram connection, as well as Freed Center for the Performing Arts for Facebook. And then for music events, most of them are on there as well, because a lot of the music events are at the Freed Center. But you could also follow Ohio Northern University Music on their Facebook page as well.
Jason's Garage also has a collection of VHS tapes from circa 1990s and 2000s, which The Sound of Music, you mentioned that's one of your favorite shows.
You were in that with me.
I think we did 26 productions in one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was enough Sound of Music that I don't think we could do Sound of Music ever again.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That was, and you were wonderful.
Oh, you're wonderful too. So.
Loved it. That was a fun summer.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a fun summer.
Yeah, sounds like it. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in and checking out the Small Nation podcast. You can find us anywhere that you listen to your podcast, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and even the Small Nation YouTube channel. I hope you're able to pull some value from that conversation, and we hope to see you in the next one. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like, comment, or a 5-star review to help more people to discover this podcast. Stay tuned to Small Nation on social media to keep up with all the cool projects that are happening here. And until next time, this is Ethan with the Small Nation podcast signing off.